You ever hear words that feel like they physically knock the air out of you? Like your chest caves in, but you have to keep smiling because you're in a room full of people watching? That was me, last Thanksgiving. I remember the smell of roasted turkey, sweet potato casserole with marshmallows, and the sound of kids running through my sister's house in Nashville. Everything looked perfect. Pinterest perfect. The kind of Thanksgiving you scroll past on Instagram and double tap without thinking. But underneath it all, there was tension, like a wire pulled tight, waiting to snap. It started when my brother's wife, Emily, said, almost too casually, "Oh, can you make sure you sit at the smaller table, Kate? That's where the extended family goes." She smiled. The kind of smile that's polite on the outside, sharp on the inside. I froze, pie server in hand, halfway through helping my niece with dessert. Extended family? I repeated, trying to keep my tone light. Since when am I extended? Emily shrugged, eyes flicking to my sister, Abby, for backup. Abby didn't look up, just kept spooning gravy over mashed potatoes like she didn't hear. But everyone heard. My parents, my nieces and nephews, even my ex-husband, who'd somehow managed to snag an invite for the kids' sake. "Of course your family," Mom said softly, trying to smooth things over. Emily just meant, "No, it's fine," I cut in, setting the server down. "I get it." But I didn't. Not really. I'd always been the one to show up, to babysit, to organize birthdays, to help clean up after holidays when everyone else was too full or too tired. I was the one who sent cards, remembered anniversaries, prayed for them all when life got messy. And yet, here I was, reduced to extended. Dinner went on, but I barely tasted anything. I kept my smile in place like armor, nodding through stories about college applications and new jobs, pretending I wasn't bleeding inside. When it came time for the family photo, Emily called out, "Okay, everyone, immediate family first." I stood there, plate in hand, watching as everyone gathered around my parents. The laughter, the poses, the perfect snapshot of belonging. Then someone, maybe Abby, said, "Should we get one with Kate too?" Emily hesitated, just long enough for the air to chill. "Oh, sure. Let's do one with everyone." Click, flash, smile. Pretend. That night, driving home in the quiet hum of my old Subaru, I replayed the scene over and over. Not family. The words looped in my head like a song you can't turn off. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, blinking back tears I didn't want to shed. I didn't realize until I hit the stoplight by my street that I was still wearing my grandmother's gold chain, the one she gave me the night before she died. The chain with the tiny engraved pendant that said, "Family first." It had been passed down to my mom, then to me, a symbol, she said, of our unbreakable bond. Unbreakable. Right. I parked, went inside, and sat on my couch, the quiet pressing in around me. My cat Molly jumped up beside me, purring like nothing in the world was wrong. I looked down at the pendant, traced the word family with my thumb, and then, without even thinking, I unclasped it, held it in my hand. The chain was thin, fragile almost. I stared at it for a long time before whispering, "Guess it's time we fix the lie." I took a small pair of scissors from the junk drawer, the kind you use for wrapping paper or cutting tags, and right there, under the glow of my living room lamp, I clipped the chain in half. It didn't feel dramatic, just quiet, heavy, final. I set the pieces down on the coffee table. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe it was my way of saying, if I'm not family to them, then this word doesn't get to own me anymore. I spent the rest of the night staring at those pieces of gold, thinking about how we spend our lives trying to fit into shapes that don't belong to us, trying to earn love that was never meant to be conditional. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet. Didn't answer texts, didn't check social media. My sister finally called on Sunday. "Hey, haven't heard from you since Thanksgiving. You okay?" "Yeah, just busy." "You left kind of suddenly the other night." I hesitated. Yeah, I guess I did. There was silence. Then, in that soft, careful tone she always used when she knew I was hurt, Abby said, "You know Emily didn't mean anything by it, right? You're still family." I laughed. Not the funny kind, the broken kind. "You keep saying that, Abs, but it sure doesn't feel like it." "Come on," she sighed. "You're overthinking. You know how Emily can be. She's just particular. Particular about who counts as family?" I shot back. She didn't respond right away. "Kate, please, let's not do this." But we were already doing it. Years of swallowed words, brushed off feelings, being the dependable one who didn't rock the boat, they all started bubbling up. "Do you even realize," I said quietly, "how often I've been treated like the outsider? Like I'm the extra plate at the table, not part of the meal. That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I said. "You all have your spouses, your kids, your houses with family portraits, and I'm the single one who shows up with a casserole and goes home alone." Abby exhaled. "You're making this about you." "Because it is about me, Abby. For once, it is." That silence again. Then she said, "I don't know what you want me to say." "Nothing," I whispered. "You already said it at dinner." I hung up before she could answer. That night, I held the broken chain again. I thought about Grandma's words, the ones she'd whispered as she pressed it in my hand that night in the hospital. Family is God's reminder that love has roots. Never forget that, Katie. I thought I'd lost those roots, but maybe, just maybe, God was pruning something in me, cutting away what wasn't love so I could finally grow. At least, that's what I told myself. But part of me still hoped, achingly, that someone, anyone from that table, would notice my absence and care enough to reach out. No one did. Not for a long time.
2 weeks went by before anyone said a word. By then, the lights were up all over town, glowing reindeer on lawns, the scent of pine and cinnamon rolling out of every store. Christmas had always been my favorite season, but that year, everything felt hollow. I still decorated, though, out of habit mostly. I pulled the small tree from storage, the same one I'd had since my first apartment after college, the one Grandma helped me pick out. As I unwrapped each ornament, I remembered who had given them to me. Abby, Mom, the kids, each one a tiny reminder of people who felt a world away. When I reached the little gold angel from Grandma, my throat tightened. She'd always said angels watch over us when family fails to. I hung it right in the middle of the tree, where the light hit just right. "Guess it's you and me this year, Grandma," I whispered. That Sunday, after church, Pastor Ron stopped me in the parking lot. "Kate," he said, "you doing okay? Haven't seen you at the women's Bible study in a while." I hesitated. "Just been busy." He smiled. That knowing kind of smile older pastors have. Sometimes busy's another word for hurting. I looked away, blinking hard. "Maybe." "Well," he said softly, "when you're ready, come back. We miss your laugh." Then he walked off, leaving me standing there in the cold, feeling seen and unseen all at once. That night, I got a text from my mom. Just a picture of our family's Christmas invitation. The usual Christmas Eve dinner, same house, same time. At the bottom, Emily had added a note, "Family only, please, keeping it intimate this year." It felt like a slap. I must have stared at that message for a full minute before my hands started shaking. I typed and deleted 3 different replies before I finally just turned off my phone. I sat there in the dark, the glow from my tree the only light in the room, and whispered, "Okay, God, I get it. I'm not invited." But something in me shifted that night. I can't explain it exactly. It was like a quiet resolve. For years, I'd defined family as those bound by blood or last names or shared holiday tables. But maybe it was time to find something deeper. Maybe family wasn't who sat beside you, it was who showed up when everyone else didn't. The next morning, I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started typing. A message not to my family, but to the women in my small group chat from church. They were single moms, widows, divorcees, women who knew what it felt like to be left out. "Hey ladies," I wrote. "How would you feel about a Christmas Eve dinner at my place? Nothing fancy, just warmth, laughter, and real belonging." Within minutes, my phone started lighting up. "Oh my gosh, yes! I'd love that. I haven't had plans in years. Thank you for doing this." Each response was like a balm on a wound I hadn't realized was still bleeding. The night of Christmas Eve came faster than I expected. I cooked everything myself: ham, mac and cheese, green bean casserole, even a chocolate pie like Grandma used to make. I lit candles, played soft carols, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt alive. By 7, the doorbell started ringing. One by one, women stepped in with dishes, gifts, and stories. Laughter filled the room, echoing off the walls that had been so quiet. Halfway through dinner, I caught myself looking around the table, the mismatched plates, the laughter, the comfort, and thought, this is family. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood by the sink washing dishes, humming Silent Night. My phone buzzed on the counter. Abby. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Hey," she said softly. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas to you," I replied, my voice cautious. She just wanted to check in. "We missed you tonight." "You did?" I asked before I could stop myself. She sighed. "Yeah, we did. I did." There was a pause. Then, "Mom told me you didn't come because of the invitation. I'm so sorry, Kate. That wasn't supposed to mean you." "Then who was it supposed to mean?" I said quietly, "because it sure felt like it was written for me." "I know," her voice cracked. "Emily thought she thought keeping it small would make things easier, but it was wrong. I told her that." I didn't respond. I didn't trust my voice. "I found out you had people over," Mom mentioned. "You did your own dinner. That's really sweet, Kate." "It wasn't sweet. It was survival." There was silence on the line. Thick, heavy silence that only sisters can sit in. Then she whispered, "I don't know when we started making you feel like you had to earn your place, but I'm sorry. I really am." I wanted to believe her. I did. But the hurt was still raw. "Thanks," was all I managed. After we hung up, I went to the living room and saw the broken chain still sitting on the coffee table, where I'd left it. I picked up the two halves, ran my fingers along the cut edges. Then, on impulse, I took the small gold pendant with the word family and tied it to a red ribbon from one of the gift boxes. I hung it on the tree, right beside Grandma's angel. It looked different there, like it belonged to something new. A week later, after New Year's, I got a small box in the mail. No return address. Inside was a new gold chain and a handwritten note. "I can't fix what was said, but I can start with this. Love, Abby." I sat at my kitchen table, holding that note, and for the first time in a long while, I cried. Not the bitter kind, but the healing kind. Still, I didn't put the pendant back on. Not yet. Some things take time.
January came and went in quiet waves. Snow fell heavier than usual that year, blanketing everything in that soft kind of silence that feels like a reset. I spent my evenings reading, journaling, and taking long walks through my neighborhood after work. Funny thing, I started to notice people more. The elderly couple who walked their dog at 5:30 every evening, the single dad who always waved when he picked up his daughter from the bus stop. The young woman down the hall who left fresh muffins at my door after seeing I'd helped shovel her walkway. There was something healing about realizing I wasn't alone, that there were small kindnesses all around me, family in unexpected places. One night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, it's Emily." My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for a minute before reading on. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I owe you an apology. Can I call?" I didn't reply right away. I poured myself some tea, sat by the window, and let the message sit there like a ticking clock. Eventually, I typed back, "Sure." When the phone rang a few minutes later, I took a deep breath before answering. "Hi," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Thanks for picking up." "Of course," I said, though my tone was cautious. There was a pause. Then she said, "I wanted to say I'm sorry for Thanksgiving, for that night, for everything." I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. She continued, "I said something that hurt you, and I've replayed it 1,000 times. I don't even know why I said it. I think maybe I was jealous." That surprised me. Jealous of what? She admitted, "Of how your family loves you, of how your mom talks about you, how your nieces light up when you're around. I felt like an outsider next to you, and I guess I wanted to make you feel small so I didn't feel so left out." Her words hit like a slow wave, unexpected, humbling. "I'm not proud of that," she added, "and I get if you don't forgive me, but I needed to say it." I exhaled. "I appreciate you saying that." We talked for a while, awkwardly at first, then easier, as if the walls between us were finally coming down. By the end, I didn't feel anger anymore, just a strange kind of peace. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time thinking about how often we hurt people not because we don't care, but because we don't know how to. Maybe grace was about understanding that. A few days later, I was back at church. Pastor Ron preached about restoration, that sometimes God rebuilds things not to make them what they were, but to make them stronger. The words settled deep in my heart. After service, as people chatted and gathered in small circles, Abby walked in. She looked around until she saw me. Our eyes met, and something in her expression softened. "Hey," she said, walking up. "You look good." "Thanks. So do you." She smiled. "Listen, I was wondering, would you come to dinner next Sunday? Everyone will be there. I know it might feel weird, but we want to try again. No expectations, no labels, just dinner." I hesitated. "I don't know, Abs. I don't want things to go back to pretending." She shook her head. "No pretending, I promise." Her eyes were sincere. For the first time in a long while, I believed her. That next Sunday, I drove to Abby's house with a casserole in the passenger seat. Old habits die hard. My stomach was in knots, but when I pulled into the driveway, I saw my family gathered on the porch. My mom waved, my dad smiled. Inside, everything smelled like home. Roast chicken, cornbread, apple pie. Emily came up to me first. "Hey," she said quietly. "I'm glad you came." "Me too," I said, and I meant it. Dinner was different this time. No invisible lines, no whispered side conversations, just laughter, stories, and easy conversation. My nephew spilled his juice and everyone laughed instead of scolding. It felt human. After dinner, my mom brought out dessert and with a grin said, "I found something of yours, Kate." She held up a small velvet box. Inside was the original broken chain. I froze. "You kept it?" She nodded. "Your grandmother would have wanted you to." Then she looked at me with those kind, steady eyes only mothers have. "You know, family isn't about who gets it right all the time. It's about who keeps coming back to the table." Something in me cracked open. Tears welled up before I could stop them. I reached for the chain, the two halves still separated, and said softly, "Maybe it's time to make it whole again." Dad stood up, went to the kitchen, and came back with a small pair of pliers. "Here," he said with a chuckle. "Figured you'd want to do the honors." Everyone watched as I carefully joined the two ends together. It wasn't perfect. You could still see the faint bend where it had been cut, but maybe that made it even more beautiful. When I clasped it around my neck, it felt lighter, somehow, like it wasn't just a reminder of pain, but of grace. Emily leaned in and said, "Looks good on you." "Thanks," I said. "Feels right." We stayed up late that night, playing games, telling stories, laughing until my cheeks hurt. For the first time in years, I felt like I truly belonged. Not because I fit in, but because I stopped trying to earn my place. As I drove home, the night was calm. The moonlight reflected off the snow, and my grandmother's words echoed in my mind. Family is God's reminder that love has roots. Maybe she was right. Maybe love doesn't always grow where we expect, but it grows anyway, stubborn and strong even through broken places. When I got home, I stood in front of the mirror, touching the small gold chain around my neck. I smiled. "I took the family out of my chain," I whispered. "But maybe what I really did was find what family truly means." I turned off the light, feeling at peace for the first time in a long time. Because sometimes healing doesn't come in grand gestures or perfect apologies. Sometimes it's just a quiet dinner, a repaired chain, and the grace to start again.